Hello, curious minds. Today's midnight question is one of those wait, what kind of thoughts? Do fish get thirsty? It's one of those questions that seems so simple, but the more you think about it, the stranger it gets. After all, fish live in water, so why would they ever need to feel thirsty? They are literally surrounded by the stuff. But as it turns out, the answer is a bit more complicated. And as always, science has some fascinating answers. So, do fish get thirsty? Let's dive in and explore the watery world of fish and find out what's really going on when it comes to their hydration. Before we can figure out if fish get thirsty, we need to define what thirst actually is. Thirst is a sensation we humans experience when our bodies need water to function properly. It's our brain's way of telling us, hey, we are low on fluids, drink some water. When you feel thirsty, it's because your body's osmoregulation system has detected that the concentration of salts, other dissolved substances in your body fluids is too high, and it needs more water to balance things out. So, if thirst is a signal that the body needs to maintain a balance of water and salts, does this happen to fish too? Well, kind of, but not exactly in the way we experience it. Let's start with freshwater fish. Fish that live in lakes, rivers, and streams have a very different relationship with water compared to us land dwellers. Freshwater fish are surrounded by water that has a much lower concentration of salt than their bodies do. This means that water is constantly moving into their bodies through a process called osmosis. It's like their cells are sponges soaking up water from their environment. Since freshwater fish are constantly absorbing water through their skin and gills, they don't need to drink water the way we do. In fact, their main challenge is getting rid of all the excess water. If they didn't find a way to expel it, they would end up bloated like a water balloon. To avoid this, freshwater fish have kidneys that work overtime to excrete large amounts of diluted urine. So instead of drinking water, these fish are busy getting rid of it. In short, freshwater fish don't get thirsty because they don't need to drink water. They are already absorbing plenty just by being in it. Saltwater fish live in a totally different world. In the ocean, the water around them has a much higher concentration of salt than what's inside their bodies. This creates the opposite problem from freshwater fish. Instead of absorbing water, saltwater fish are constantly losing water from their bodies. The salt in the water draws water out of their cells through osmosis. To solve this dehydration problem, saltwater fish actually do drink water. They have to. These fish actively drink seawater to replace the fluids they are losing. But there is a catch. Seawater is full of salt, and fish can't just absorb all that salt into their bodies without no consequences. So they have developed a clever system to handle it. After drinking the seawater, their gills filter out the excess salt, while their kidneys excrete the salty waste. But here's where things get tricky. While saltwater fish are technically drinking water, they are not thirsty, not in the way we experience thirst. They don't have the same conscious sensation of thirst that we do. Instead, their bodies are constantly working to maintain a balance in between water and salt without the need of a brain signal that says, hey, drink more water. Now, you might be wondering, if fish don't get thirsty, does that mean that they don't need to regulate their water intake at all? Well, fish don't get thirsty in the same way humans or other land animals do, but they still have mechanisms in place to regulate the balance of water and salt in their bodies. This is controlled by a process called osmoregulation, which is all about maintaining the right levels of water and dissolved substances like salt. Osmoregulation is handled automatically by the fish's organs, primarily the gills and kidneys, without the need for the fish to actively think about drinking water. In land animals, thirst is a part of the feedback system that keeps our osmoregulation in check. We get thirsty when our bodies need more water, and that prompts us to drink. Fish, on the other hand, are constantly interacting with water, so their bodies are more directly connected to their environment and they regulate water intake differently. There are some interesting exceptions in the fish world, like air-breathing fish and mud skippers. These fish can spend part of their time out of water, and you might think they would experience thirst like land animals. But even these fish have adapted unique ways to avoid dehydration without getting thirsty. Mud skippers, for example, are fish that can live on land for long periods of time. Instead of drinking water, they stay hydrated by absorbing water through their skin when they are out of the water. They also have specialized gills that allow them to hold on to water for longer periods, so they don't dry out while exploring the mudflats. Even though they are out of the water, mud skippers still don't experience thirst the way we do. They've just adapted their osmoregulation to a more amphibious lifestyle. So what about sharks? Sharks are a bit different from other saltwater fish. Unlike bony fish, sharks have a unique way of dealing with the salty ocean water. They don't need to drink seawater because they have a high concentration of urea in their blood, which allows them to maintain a balance of water and salts. This special adaptation prevents water from constantly leaving their bodies through osmosis. In this way, sharks are able to avoid dehydration without needing to drink water like other saltwater fish. In summary, no, fish don't really get thirsty in the way we humans do. Freshwater fish are constantly absorbing water through osmosis, so they don't need to drink water. Saltwater fish, on the other hand, actively drink water to prevent dehydration, but their bodies handle this process automatically through osmoregulation. While fish don't have the conscious experience of thirst, they are still masters at keeping their water levels in check, whether they are swimming in the sea or lounging in a lake. So, the next time you are taking a midnight dip into strange thoughts, remember, while you are sipping on water to stay hydrated, the fish around you are doing their own balancing act, but without ever feeling thirsty. That's all for today's episode of Midnight Question. I hope you enjoyed this dive into the watery world of fish. Got a weird question that keeps you up at night? Drop it in the comments and maybe we will explore it together next time. Until then, stay curious and stay hydrated. I am Mari and this is Midnight Question.